In the world of Twisted Metal, the character of Shadow has always driven a Cadillac from the 1950s. Well, maybe not every game, but the greater majority. Anyway, while I have nothing against Cadillacs from the 1950s, I'm beginning to think Shadow should change to a different body style. So, I've come up with a few suggestions for alternate body styles. The first idea is to keep it a Cadillac, but change it a year. Preferably a different decade. Now, going back in time to the 1940s, I find that Cadillac hearses are big and fat fendered, and not a bad choice for Shadow. Going a little further into the 1930s, cars are fat fendered still, but a little slimmer, and kinda stylized. However, I would go no further than the 1930s. Start going any further and the car might become too frail. As we all know, Shadow's kind of a midweight. So instead, let us go forward in time, this time to the 1960s. Here, we find that the cars are becoming flatter and less round. Moving on to the 1970s, cars are really starting to take on the boxy shape, and are becoming even less round than before. And by the 1980s, Cadillacs have become ungodly boxy. Not that it's a bad thing, it would definitely work for Shadow. But then when you get to the 90s, cars once again are becoming more rounder, but they're also becoming very smoothed out as well. And to be honest, they just don't look as intimidating as the other cars on this list. And that's the problem. You see, when I think of Shadow, I think of something dark and intimidating. I mean, don't get me wrong. You can still make modern cars look dark and intimidating, sure. But I just don't see how you can make a modern day hearse look dark and intimidating. Bottom line, it just doesn't work. At least not for Shadow. So having said that, I think it's time to move on to a different brand of car. My first choice would be the Lincoln Town Car, or Lincolns in general. As far as I'm concerned, Lincolns would be the second best choice when choosing a hearse. However, they're not the only choice. There's also Oldsmobile, Buick, Pontiac, and even an El Camino. But my last suggestion is probably the most radical, as it is not a car, but rather an SUV, a Chevy Suburban. Yes, believe it or not, some people actually use Chevy Suburbans as hearses. And that would be my last choice. Anyway, those are my choices. Please let me know what you think in the comments below.